All right, hey guys, Bob here from Bob's World, aka Shake and Bake. First off, guys, thanks for the comments, likes, and subbing to the channel. Hope you're having some fun with it, learning something. Maybe I doubt it, but if you don't know who I am, I love to fly drones. Like I'm an old fart, been flying it for a couple of years. Started with DJI, and now I've moved on to non-DJI drones. A lot of TinyWhoop fly, especially during the winter. Love TinyWhoops. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I've always had this desire lately to do this. I talked to Greg about this, Zen Falcon, about doing this video. Now that I've been flying exclusively pretty much TinyWhoops now for over the last year here, I wanted to make a video, two parts. I want to talk about if you're thinking about getting into TinyWhoops, you know, which one should you get? 65 millimeter Pro, or standard 65 millimeter, 75 analog, 75, HD0 with a Lux camera. Should I do, a build like this? No prompt guards, more like a toothpick 75. Which one? And I'm going to try to not make this too long. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the 04 Lite camera I've been seeing in these videos from the influencers who I sometimes think are trying to convince you to buy one. My thoughts on that, not that they matter, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, about putting those on TinyWhoops. But first, let's do the first part. If you haven't bought a TinyWhoop, and this is my opinion, you got to figure out your own path. But I'm just going to share what I have, my experience, right? And again, some of you who fly them, share yours below. Let's try to help some people out. What should I get? Should I get a 65 millimeter? Should I get a 75? 65 millimeter Pro? What's the difference between those two? What HD, analog? What should I get? The first thing I'm going to say to you is it depends what you're going to do with it. If you're just flying for fun and you want something you can fly indoors, small spaces, doing maybe some freestyle, but it's all about the fun factor. And in my opinion, this is where I've landed. I think 75 millimeter gives you the best of all worlds in the TinyWhoop experience. And let me tell you more about that, okay? One thing you're going to realize with TinyWhoops is you don't get a lot of flight time. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, there's a range here. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot when it comes to flying TinyWhoops, right? Every little second, minute counts, right, for this experience. The other fact is, where can you fly the drone? Indoor, small spaces, outside. And here's a 65 millimeter Pro, a little bit bigger than a standard 65, but not much, okay? And here you can see it next to a 75, right? Why I think this is a better drone to start out with if you're getting a TinyWhoop, you want to try it, is for me, the 75 millimeter size checks all the boxes. And that goes for analog, or if you want to go like HD setup here, like this HD0 with the Lux camera. You get longer flight times than the standard 65, okay? I can get like over 5 minutes on this with a 1S battery, a 550 battery, a 450 I can get usually, up to 4 minutes, depends on how hard you're going to fly. I'd say even on the Pro here, I've been flying this a little bit stinky pinky, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, depends how hard you're pushing it. So the first plus is longer flight time. You get, in the TinyWhoop world, so much more flight time on a 75. Next, flying indoors. You would think, this is my experience, guys, you would think the 65, because it's smaller, is the way to go for indoors. And yeah, you could rip this thing indoors and all that. But I tell you, my experience, I pretty much only fly the 75. The 75 indoors, why I like it actually better is because it's a little bit heavier. The motors are a little bit bigger, right? The prop size is 40 millimeters bigger than even these 35s or 31s on the 65. When you're at low throttle, okay, you're not going fast, you're just hovering or you're going slow, I think 65s are tough to control. You get a lot of this up and down stuff, right? I'm not a pro. So, I mean, average flyers, you get a lot of this up and down stuff. With the 75, because it's a little bigger, you get a bigger prop span here. At the lower throttle, I think it's a lot easier. You don't get a lot of this up and down stuff. It actually, because it's a little heavier, cruises easier. It steers easier at lower speeds, I think. It's more predictable, even outside, because it's not getting thrown around as much as the smaller size 65 millimeter. So indoor, you can fly indoor and out. And the one thing I would say to you, if you're thinking about the 75, and I would have this on the 65 as well, is on your controller, there's videos on this. You can set it up. I got a Radio Master Boxer Max. If you could set it on one of your dials, where you can set the motors, the power going to your motors, right? Then you really can, this is the best of all worlds. Like if I fly this indoors like I'm going to later, I dial it down, the motors down to about 66, 65%, outside 100%, right? And so having that ability, again, you're flying indoors, they can get all over the place when they get down to low speed. Not this baby. This is not just for outdoors. I can fly this better indoors than the 65. Did I say that enough already? The next thing, durability. I don't even know how long I've had the Luxie. This is the Luxie 75. You got to name your TinyWhoops, right? I started out with the 65s. I broke more 65s hitting stuff than ever with a 75 frame. I think because it's a bigger frame, I think it's more durable. For some reason, I've crashed this thing. I've yet to break this. Even with this one right here, same thing, this analog one, yet to break it. So I think durability-wise, same board, same cameras that you would use on a 65. I think the frames, because they're a little bigger, a little more durable, overall, the drone is more durable. So flying more places, inside, outside, more stable, and, especially if it's a little windy, also more durable, plus the flight times, okay? Now, as far as cost, and there's options. You can do HD, HD0. You can get a eco camera on there. You can get a Lux camera, nice Lux camera, 16:9, really nice picture quality. Or you can go cheaper with analog. And with analog, I've found, as long as you're flying during the day, basically, the camera's going to be good enough, especially if you go with a pinch camera or the CO3. I think that's what's on here. The advantages is cost. I think you can probably do this for like just over a little $100. Cheap to fix it if you break something. And the analog is going to be inherently lighter than an HD build. So longer flight time, snappier, all those things with an analog build. Now, something like this, okay, is an awesome option. This is the Baby Nano frame, whatever. This is an analog build with some bigger motors on it. I want to say these are 1,002 motors, maybe. This thing rips. Now, this thing, if you want, for an outside, I wouldn't fly this indoors. For an outside flyer, if that's what you're going to do and you want to rip and you want to have that 75 frame size, the longer flight time, some power, you can ask me about this build. I call this guy Mad Max. This thing rips. But obviously, if you crash, higher chance of damage compared to the ones with the prop guards. But another option. But if I had to choose only one option, I would go with a 75 millimeter build, analog or HD, cheaper analog, more expensive, better picture quality, etc. So I went all through those. I think that covers it. I can't say enough about those. Build toughness, flight time, stability, inside and out, smoothness of flying, all of that. My vote is on the 75 millimeter if you're getting into it, right? And the other guys out there who fly these, share your thoughts below. What do you think? The next, I want to just transition now to this. You see all these videos. Come on, man. You see all these videos from guys, pilots, who are throwing on an 04 DJI 04 Lite camera on a 75 millimeter bill. I think they come out with a drone. I think Nick Burns flew one the other day, and I'm not sure if I'm sure people throw on a 65 as well. You do need a special board for that, just because the power supply needed for that eco camera. But here's what I want to ask you guys, what I want to share. When I see these influencers putting these on, and they're flying around, and kind of acting like they like it, the struggle I have is, the reality is, when you fly a TinyWhoop, for the most part, right, you're just flying these for fun. These are like, you thrash them around, you fly them indoors, you do fun tricks, you take these with you, fly these anywhere people aren't bothered by them. It's the fun factor times 10. You're not flying these normally, that I know of, to like do commercial work. Like, you're not taking this in a place and doing commercial work. You need 4K quality. It's not what they're for. So when I see a TinyWhoop where they're putting on this, I think $125 for a DJI 04 Lite camera, and that's a lot of money. Especially if you're doing, by the time you're said and done, I don't know, you're $200 something probably for a TinyWhoop. You've got this 4K camera on there that sucks a ton of power, that you're not going to get long flight times on, from what I'm seeing. And the other thing is, the field of view is so narrow, from what I've seen. And I've seen some people do some workarounds where they're like, like using a heat gun to take the lens off, who wants to do that? I don't, with a $125 camera. I want it to work as it is. So you got this narrow field of view. And then the other is, when you watch it, you can tell, just because I've watched these guys enough and I've flown enough, that they don't fly nearly as well as a standard 75 millimeter build, a standard 65 millimeter build, whether it's HD0, whether it's analog. No way. I can see them struggling as they're trying to kind of maneuver these things, because the weight is too much, in my opinion, for a TinyWhoop, especially 65, 75. Maybe you want to bump up to 85. I'm sure it's fine, but 65 and 75 a frame size, you can see it when you watch the videos, guys, with a critical eye. Don't be mesmerized by that image, because if you're flying for fun and freestyle and zipping around and flight times, you're not going to get that, I don't think, with that 04 camera. And you crash these a lot. One bash in and you damage that 04 camera, which is sitting there. There's $125 down the drain. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. Sorry, I don't want to sound like that. To each their own, and fly what works for you. And now I could see it if you were going to do commercial work with it, and you wanted to go into small places and do that. But for most part, I think most people are going to use a bigger size, anyway, like 85 and up, a TinyWhoop. And so I know it's the cool new thing on the block, but just be careful. You're not bamboozled by some of these videos. And the last thing I'll say about it, to me, TinyWhoops, why I love flying them and making the videos, there's like a subculture of TinyWhoops that I like, kind of this underground rebels, ripping around, gorilla whooping in places. And when you look at the videos, I love seeing the OSD, and especially like analog. I love seeing the bars, it just gives it this old school vibe to it. And even the HD0, you get some breakup, and it's not perfect. But to me, that's what makes it fun. It's about the flying and the tricks and the gorilla whooping and all that stuff. So, like, I think I saw a video today from FPV Vegan, and who does the gorilla whooping, and Greg and I love this dude. He like flies in all crazy places, stores and shit. But he was trying out the 04 Lite on a drone. I think it might have been someone else's drone, and which little thing, and it just wasn't the same. Like, it was this clear 4K picture cropped in, no OSD on it, and it could have been any kind of like drone flying in there. It just didn't give me the feeling it was a TinyWhoop, and for me, I actually stopped the video because I liked his other ones better, where it was analog and all breaking up and just kind of old school looking, and kind of, I don't know, it just has a cool look to it. So I won't beat a dead horse, and I'm not saying don't get an 04 camera. I'm just saying be careful when you watch those videos, because I would bet, in fact, I'd bet all 4 of these TinyWhoops I just showed you, that when they put that, when they stop recording, they put that 04 bill down, most of those diehard TinyWhoop flyers, they're flying something a lot lighter, something that they can do their freestyle, they can rip around, whether it's analog or HD0. My guess, I could be wrong, that they're not going to put those away and just fly this 04 because it looks like it flies like a tank. So, all right, guys, I'm not telling you not to get it. I'm not bashing it. Try not to. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know this is a long video, me just rambling on, but I had to get this off my chest. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. What do you think? Are you going to get the 04? And if you are, why? Yeah. So we're going to go fly tonight at the sandwich shop, as always. And just 2 old farts having a good time, Zen Falcon and Shake and Bake. And again, we appreciate you guys. Hope you're having fun flying, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, unless you're doing it for business, and we're not. And if you want to see something different, it's hard now because the snow's out, so we're just doing TinyWhoops. And but more to come. Cheers. Have an awesome week. And again, thank you so much.